Hello and welcome to the Boot Room. Andy Warren and Stuart Watson here to look ahead to Ipswich Town's latest League One battle. They go to Oxford this weekend. Games are running out, points are needed. And this week is a game against the team fourth in the division, Stu. So we know Ipswich need to win a lot of games, and their task this weekend is a tough one.
Yeah, it is indeed. Carl Robinson's side, I think, going for the third successive season of finishing in the playoffs. Traditionally, they've started slowly and finished strongly. They got off to a better start this time around, and that's why they're quite comfortably placed in fourth at the moment. They've won 5 of their last 6. They've got Matty Taylor scoring goals aplenty, 19, I think, for him. Cameron Brannigan is a star man in midfield. So a tough test for Ipswich, as you say. Draws are no good. They drew against Portsmouth last weekend. They now need to win at least one, if not both of these games against Oxford away and then Plymouth at home if they're going to close that 6 points gap.
I don't know how to look at this game, Stu, because history, if I read out the 5 games that these two teams have played against each other in League One, they've gone 0-0, 1-0 to Oxford, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0. So that's 1 goal in 5 matches. That's not a lot of goals in 5 football matches. But Oxford United are the leading scorers in League One. You got the most fierce attack against the meanest defence. Is it going to be 0-0 again? I can't decide if I think it is or whether actually the game has changed and we're might be in for a treat.
I don't know. Ipswich have come up against plenty of sides that have parked the bus or certainly made things difficult, sat in, been deeper, frustrated. Ipswich, how many games have we seen at Portman Road with the crowd chanting boring, boring, insert team name here? We won't get that against Oxford. They're open, they're brave, they want to score goals. It's a bit like what Paul Cook's mentality was earlier in the season. We'll score more than you. Now, will that create an open game with goals, or will Ipswich's dominance of the ball kind of lead to a low scoring one? I really don't know, but you've pointed out Oxford score plenty. They concede plenty as well. I think they've conceded 23 over their last 15 games, and Ipswich have conceded 5 in that time. So it's going to be fascinating to see which way that pans out. I mean, Portsmouth were scoring plenty of goals going into last weekend, and that finished 0-0 as well. So I'd probably err towards the lower scoring type game than the higher scoring one, if I'm honest.
What you're saying is we don't really know.
No,
that's ultimately this boils down to not knowing, and that's the beauty of it. As Paul Lambert used to say, the beauty of it is we'll get to find out. We'll also get to find out the Ipswich Town team. We're talking about the same 2 areas of the town team as we seem to talk about every week now. We're talking about central midfield, and we're talking about the front line, and that's a lot of it down to hamstring injuries. Caden Jackson's hamstring injury sounds like it's ended his season in a very cruel manner for a player who was enjoying his football. So there's a decision to make there. Sam Morsey's still got a hamstring injury that forced him off after 20 minutes at the weekend. He's going to be assessed before this one, so he's in contention, but you're not going to look at him particularly confidently on the pitch. I wouldn't have thought. Another weekend to take a risk.
He'll have come off with that hamstring injury in 2 successive games. It went after 8 minutes, or he felt it after 8 minutes before playing on and eventually conceding defeat last weekend. And he'll have had 1 training session, proper training session going into this. He hasn't trained all week. He did a bit of light stuff with the fitness guys on Thursday. As we sit here speaking Friday, he'll have done a proper session this Friday morning, and they'll make a late call on him. But Ipswich are running out of games, and only wins will do, and you want your big players available for these big games, and Sam Morsey is arguably the biggest player that they've got. So whether they take another calculated risk on him, which semi-backfired last weekend, do you push your luck again and then create more damage? And then potentially is eating into pre-season and stuff like that? I don't know. If he doesn't make it, then we've got a Tyreek Backinson and Tom Carroll central midfield starting. And as we all know, the dynamic with those two is completely different to when you've got a Morsey and or Lee Evans in that midfield.
Yeah, Morsey's a character that is clearly going to be the kind of person that wants to play if he possibly can. We've talked about that decision maybe coming out of his hands. Potentially, it'll be interesting to see which way that goes. But the big fear I've got is one that you've just mentioned there. If you push your luck so much that it becomes one that affects his summer and kind of affects going into pre-season for next season, that's the call that they're going to have to make, because even if he does play this weekend, you would think that this hamstring is going to be an issue for the rest of the season in one way or another. It's not going to suddenly vanish, is it, if they're pushing him?
No, and I guess the difficulty is, as I would say, central midfield is arguably one of Oxford's strong points. We've mentioned Cameron Brannigan, 13 goals from midfield. Herbie Kane as well is a really tenacious, energetic player in the middle of that pitch. So this is a Sam Morsey type of game. So only those that have seen Sam Morsey train this morning will know if it's a risk worth taking. But I feel less confident without him in the team, that's for sure, because Backinson and Carroll have some really great technical qualities, but I'm not sure the balance is quite right with both of them in the team.
Are you happy for Backinson to go again as Morsey's partner? That was what was used from the start while Morsey was on the pitch at the weekend. I think I'd be edging in that direction from the start of the game.
It's not a complete slam dunk for me. I could understand why they would go in that direction, but Tom Carroll, I thought, grew into that game last week, considering we know he spent the whole week ill and put his hand up late on Saturday morning to go on the bench. Yes, it took him a while to get going, but I thought in that second half he played really well against Portsmouth, and he recycles the ball really well. He's got an eye for a pass. In the type of sort of open game that this could be, maybe his ability on the ball could be a way to turn, but I've got no strong feelings either way as if it was to be Backinson or Carroll, because Backinson can do some of those things as well.
We'll see which way McKenna goes. Another change going to have to be made in attack, as we said. Caden Jackson. The options there, I guess, are things could get mixed up a little bit, but there's Macaulay Bond, James Norwood, and Joe Piggott, who you think would be one of those three are simply going to come in for Caden Jackson and play ahead of some kind of combination of Selina, Aluko, and Chaplin.
Yeah, Aluko, obviously man of the match in the midweek win against Lincoln, came off to a standing ovation, and then rested, rotated, whatever label you want to put on it for the game against Portsmouth. He is 33 years of age. I'm sure they're sort of just managing his minutes, and the fact that they've got so many options up front. McKenna, we know, rotates those front players. So does he come back in to this team? I would say that there's a strong chance of that. And then the question is which of Selina and Chaplin drop out. That's a really tough call, because Selina's, I think, hitting his best form of the season. He's got a little bit of a buzz around him after his interview this week, saying that he wants to stay beyond the end of this loan spell. He had hands in goals against Morecambe and Fleetwood. All four of those goals he was involved in. But Chaplin, I thought, played really well against Portsmouth as well. He was really busy and energetic and affected the game. And you always feel that he can put the ball in the net if the chance comes to him. So again, really hard to call which of those two out of those three. And then up top again, pick a name out of a hat really at this stage. Have you got a feeling which way you'll go with?
Yeah, well, I've got a feeling which way I would go. In both of those areas, I'm starting Bersant Selina in every game for the rest of the season if he's available. In my opinion, I'd probably pair him with Aluko for this one. And my lottery ball out of the machine, out of Guinevere or whatever the machine was called, would probably be number 18, Macaulay Bon. I thought he did well in the half that he played at the weekend. I obviously should have had a goal. He had looked a bit more like the Macaulay Bon I thought that we'd seen previously. So for me, of those three, I'd be going for Macaulay Bon.
Yeah, I think if they've got any chance of putting together the string of wins that are required between now and the end, getting a goal scorer in red hot form again is the best chance. And Macaulay Bonne has done it before. It might just take that one goal to spark him. Who knows? If that goal that was incorrectly ruled out for offside last weekend had gone in, then you'd be thinking, yeah, the renaissance starts now. And maybe it still will. So I can see the logic with Macaulay Bonne. But that said, I thought Joe Pigott was starting to show what it was all about in the start he had up at, was it Fleetwood or Morecambe?
Fleetwood.
Both of those games are blurring into one. Fleetwood, I thought he did pretty well in that game before coming off, actually, and is more of the drop deep link player, requires runners to go in beyond. So it depends what sort of tactic and approach Kieran McKenna wants to take to this game. He'll have done some deep research, I'm sure.
Yeah, it sounds like Oxford have been a bit of a shadow team for Ipswich this season. McKenna talking about how he's used, because Oxford have a similar approach to the game, that he's kind of used Oxford matches as a way of profiling other teams. So he's certainly seen an awful lot of Carl Robinson's side. So that's the game. I guess all that's left is to predict the winner of it, Stu. Don't say 0-0.
I won't say 0-0. Andy, no. I'll cut to the chase. I think this is a game they might lose. When I looked at these kind of crunch fixtures at the end of March a few weeks ago, away to Oxford looked the most difficult task. And I think it's made even more difficult by the fact that there's no George Edmondson. Yes, Burgess did really well last weekend. Maybe a bit of adrenaline and stuff gets you through that game. You're up against it, I would say, another step up in opposition this weekend. So that's a test of that back three. No Morsey would be a big miss. Then your most informed striker that was just starting to find his feet out as well. So all things considered, I think this might be another game against a team above them. They might come up just short in 2-0 Oxford. Sorry.
Yeah, we've as usual, we've already made these predictions in podcasts and other things earlier in the weekend. As always, when I predict a kind of negative Ipswich result, which I have done, a 2-1 loss. I think Town will get a goal in this game. It's now Friday afternoon, and that Friday afternoon football bug is biting a little bit, and I'm feeling a little bit more positive. But that would only kind of take me towards a draw, which it's not what they need, is it? They need to be winning games. But my logical head earlier in the week had them down for a 2-1 loss. Hopefully we have no idea what we're talking about, Stu, and Ipswich can go and get the win at Oxford this weekend and maybe breathe a little bit of something positive into the chase for the League One playoffs.